welcome to our virtual learning circle, our circle of squares, as we like to call it on Zoom. We're here together to talk about the pandemic endurance, building immunity in partnership with nature with Tammy Marshall, who has done a great podcast for us on this topic. And this is truly just a conversation, a discussion, a chance for Tammy to share more of her wisdom, a chance for everyone to ask her questions or to share their wisdom, because we know everybody comes with some. And it is whatever we choose to make this next hour. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to you, Tammy, to just go ahead and kind of get things started with where you'd like to go, and we'll see where we end up.
Great. Thank you, Joan. And thanks everyone from the Pioneer Network. Just really quickly, this whole conversation is going to really talk about the notion of biophilia, which, breaking down the word, bio is life, philia is loved. It was coined by Edward Wilson, a Harvard guy. And really it means the feelings and affinity we have for nature and living things. So today, though, specifically on the Listen, Learn, Explore, first I'm going to listen to each of you and explore your happy place in nature, and then talk about how you can take that happy place, whether it's the mountains, the beach, as Jack has behind himself, in your garden, in the courtyard, if you live in a community, where, or by your window at your, everyone has their place. Sometimes it's doing your dishes and looking out your window. Sometimes it's sitting in your dining room and looking. Everyone has their place. I want to talk about specifically your place and how to keep bringing nature inside, and doing this through the lens of what we've called pandemic endurance, meaning that those experiences that you bring yourself to and the residents to that are in closer affinity to nature and natural things bring about health promoting benefits all on their own naturally. One of the reasons I'm glad this is a visual is because we often do podcasts and I can't show you. So there's mountains and mountains and mountains, and I'm going to say mountain, and all behind me. I can just keep pulling them out for you. Books on biophilia and biophilia inside and outside. So what spews out of my mouth, and as I listen to you, I want for those kind of folks in medicine, and oftentimes in the West, we need to hear this word, evidence-based research, for what we're talking about. I was, brought up in Western medicine system, trained that way. My background as a clinician is that way. So science is here for incorporating nature as a health promoting benefit in your life. So I want to make that clear too, because some people say, oh, is this a tree hugger? If I say, oh, where do you live? I live in Ithaca. Oh, this is another one of those tree huggers from Ithaca. I love trees. I will hug trees. I kiss trees. I have trees around me, but the science behind why I love that. And so that's what I want to talk about.
Sorry about that. I'll learn this unmute thing. That sounds incredible, Tammy. So do you want to start with seeing if anyone has any questions or thoughts, or did you want to actually pose that question to all of us?
Yeah, the first question is, think about where you feel most calm and relaxed. So where you have if I said to you, your workday is over, you don't have a meal to go to, there's nobody in the house, wander to where you'd go, inside the house, outside the house, or if you had time off, where would you end up on a vacation? Just for a few seconds, think about where your place is.
Mine's near water. I mean, it could be a little bit of water or a big bunch of water, but it's water, and I'm a walker. So if I can walk around water, that's just even better.
And there's a lot to walking around, and specifically getting your feet wet in water from a conduction standpoint, ions. What you're getting when you're around that water are natural ions, protons, neutrons, electrons. It goes back to science. You're getting all those ions, and it just makes you feel better. That's one thing. You're also getting a vista, they call a savanna, which is a big space to look at. So the big ocean or the big lake, it eases the eyes, because if you're in a city and looking at all the buildings and the traffic and the cabs, it actually is hard for your brain to do that. So when you get to look out onto a body of water, it's not as hard for your brain to work. So your cortisol goes down, your blood pressure goes down, your heart rate goes down, because there's no challenge up here. It's just, there's the ocean, and your body naturally responds.
Oh,
So that's great. Water, a lot of people love water. Jack, you seem, maybe not, but your background is water, but are you a water, mountain, courtyard?
Just being outside. So when you said, I can't give you one specific place, but if I have to put it on mute, it's because I have my friend here who's a year and a half old. It's a golden doodle who wants to bark at everything that goes by. But Nancy and I, my wife, that one of the reasons for the dog has been, it makes us, we don't have an excuse not to get out and walk. So in the morning and the evening, and our neighborhood here, it's a planned community in South Jersey in Medford, but just as a way of description, there's a lake behind our house. We're 2 houses away from the beach at the lake. So we spend a lot of time out walking the dog and so forth, but I also am involved in a community garden. So, that's where I spend time. Or in this case, the image that's on the screen is my wife, her family are all from Maine. So once a year we go back for either reunion or a planned vacation, or, combination of. And so, it's just been a fun place to go to. So, and as a full disclosure, I'm a landscape architect, and most of the work that I've been doing is in the design of therapeutic gardens in healthcare facilities. So I'm cheating by being here then. So I'll keep my mouth shut.
Talk a lot, add to it. I just finished a whole series on what they're doing in Denmark in terms of the mental health, really, really impactful mental health experiences that people are having in their the gardens that are happening in Denmark. And I can send a link, Joan, so people could see that. Okay. Essentially reversing various degrees of depression by immersing themselves in these gardens. So I love that you're here. I love that you have multiple areas in which you can go to find what we would call refuge, right? And just prospect and refuge. And I would also say that you are one among the fortunate in terms of when we think about health disparities and health equity. Just listening to you talking about all the choices that you have. I'm so happy for you. And in the back of my mind, I think of the residents who are room bound, maybe TV room bound, front corridor bound, and what that does in terms of health equity. Also urban living, sometimes if it, for the workforce who may not have it's not just urban, it's urban and rural, all the options that you just had. So I like to say that when we can talk about 2 or more places in nature that bring us a comforting experience, we are on the health equity spectrum. We are fortunate and privileged, because there are people, you would think it's a strange thing to think about, but there are people who what we call, there's another word for it, but it's basically sensory deprived for nature. And the less time you spend in nature, obviously chronic disease goes up because you're not getting all that anti-inflammatory benefit. But it's really, they call it sensory anesthesia. Like you really lose the relationship with nature. And I think a lot about our residents when I think about that.
absolutely. Yeah. Kathy, you want to go?
Yeah, thanks. I love the beach. I live in Florida, but in Orlando, so it's not by the beach. We do have lots of lakes here, which is nice. And there's a lake in my community, and I like walking around there. But I also like state parks and national parks. And, it's just incredible when I get to go to those, and all different terrains, so that's very enjoyable. But here I am in a condo, so second floor of a condo. I have a balcony that overlooks a park, so that's nice. I see green and trees. And if I didn't have that balcony during COVID, it would have been a lot worse. So that was like my savior, was to be able to go out there, except for, when I would go out for a walk, that was great too, just staying away from people. But on the balcony, I didn't have any people around, so I didn't have to worry about it. And it really makes a difference. And I have to make sure that during my work day that I go out either for a walk or onto the balcony or somewhere outside, because I could be in here all day, and that never feels good to be in all day.
It doesn't feel good, and your health biometrics would actually say that. The other thing that you brought up, which is really, again, balcony is, and I say this and I mean it with all respect to you and Jax, like those are privileges that we have and that we hear about, that sometimes the residents and many other people do not have. So consider yourself lucky and on the higher end of health equity in that area. There are other areas in your life, but I really try to connect it to health equity, because to me, it's the best preventative medicine. And again, I'm saying it backed by evidence, not just because I like to be outside.
There you go. Well, but as you were talking, Kathy, it made me think several years ago, I had the opportunity to go to Australia. And I visited a couple of nursing homes while I was there, because that's what we do when we're in this profession. So I visited a lovely community that they had been working on household model with Action Practice, who introduced them to me. And the thing I found absolutely fascinating was this was what we would consider equivalent to a skilled nursing. They had balconies on every one of their rooms. And I will tell you, as I stood there and looked at that and admired that, I also realized how in this country that would never, ever happen, because we are so risk averse. I mean, I used to work for a hospital that built beautiful balconies on their labor delivery recovery room suites, and they never, ever used them because an attorney got in there and said, you can't do it. Some mother's going to have postpartum depression, and lock the doors. And so it would never happen in a nursing home. And yet here it was in a nursing home. And I thought that's where I would want to be. If I have to be in a high rise, give me something that gets me outdoors, because, and my outdoor place, I kind of reflect a lot of what everybody else has said. My dream has always been to live on a lake, because I just love the feel of living on a lake. But mostly my outdoors is hiking, and whether it's walking around lakes or in the woods. I hate when I have to walk the subdivision, because I find that just not a very exciting place to walk. So I will be much more inclined to hop in the car and drive for 10 minutes to find myself someplace nice that has some nature to it.
Especially the woods are especially there are countless studies that showcase the average and where the real bonus return is 3 days in the woods. There's actually, if you just Google 3 days in the woods and the health promoting benefits, there's something to that 3-day length that resets the body. And when I say resets the body, you can read some of the studies on what's happened from blood pressure, heart rate. It also is a massive boost to creativity. You do not have to go for 3 days. You don't even have to go to the woods. That's the whole beauty of nature inside. When you're outside in the woods, it's better. You're smelling the turpine, you're getting the cypress, you're getting all the natural elements from the soil that you're smelling, and we're all part of that. So I don't like to say it's better, it's just a different experience. You can put a nature scene on your wall like Jack has on behind him and actually still receive the benefits of calming experience, lowered heart rate, lowered pulse, better oxygenation if you're consciously thinking about your breathing when you're viewing that. And so to the point of bringing nature inside, and especially for our residents going into the pandemic, well, we're in the pandemic, but what we're calling pandemic endurance. Sometimes I say to myself, I'm going to get on these podcasts and I'm not going to discuss the pandemic, but my heart is hurting knowing that for the last almost 2 years, most residents did not get outside, much less even to the courtyard. And that's from fear of, fear of being around other people, fear of, what we took literally when it said isolate. We literally close the door, shut the door, don't come out of your room. We'll bring your tray to you. We did all of that, right? And so how do we bring nature inside when we're in those systems that right now are operating with a lot of fear? So I had thank you guys for sharing. There is another one I see a 303. I don't know if that's just a call or whatever, but I don't want to miss anybody's.
I think we have someone on the phone. I don't know if you can talk to us.
Yes, it's me. It's Penny.
Oh, hi,
Oh, hey,
Penny.
Penny.
Place.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, just had to be on the phone, but I'm listening intently. So go ahead.
For Jack and Jan, Penny is our CEO at Pioneer Network.
That's right.
And she's out in Denver where there's lots of opportunities.
Yeah, there's a whole rewilding center in Denver. So that's pretty fortunate that she's out there. So let's go back. I sent off a top 10 tips for bringing nature inside. Again, these are backed by science. And when I wrote the list and brought in the evidence for it.
Do you want me to share it, Tammy?
Sure. It's designed and written for the workforce because part of this Listen and Learn Explore is to help identify strategies that can help what I'm calling and what others are calling, it's not just me, recharge the workforce. And I use this word recharge because the word itself kind of is self-explanatory, but there was a more recent study of a nature immersion experience that came out of Mount Sinai right in the heat of COVID, where doctors and nurses were invited to go into a break room that was redesigned to introduce nature inside. So there's the typical break room that you walk in long-term care and in the hospitals, or at least the ones I've been in, that you are lucky in long-term care. If you walk in, there's usually a table, maybe a chair, maybe a vending machine, maybe a water machine. But what typically is on the wall there is every infection preventionist note you could possibly find, along with every bit of HR compliance. Did you do this? Nothing that says, let me go to the break room and relax. I literally, wherever I would spin, I would see a compliance poster, probably. Not faulting anyone in long-term care. I owned and operated and worked in them, everything on the spectrum. So why all the more reason I'm so passionate about to bring in, those things have to be there. They're compliant, you got to follow the rules. But what else can we do that would mirror what the Mount Sinai group did for the doctors and nurses during COVID? So imagine your break room and redesigning it with things that you have inside your nursing home or even in the residence room. So here's just a few of the things that have a big bang for your health, if you could incorporate those. And everything says residents too, but this is designed to really support the workforce also. Place your favorite chair next to a window. Can't tell you any gazing that you do. It's called soft fascination when you gaze out your window. And you would gaze at something that your eyes, remember back to the urban setting where it's challenging your brain. If you gaze out your window and there is a vista or a tree or any sign of nature, or even just that your eyes get to see the sky and the outdoors, your body responds to that naturally, bringing down all those biometrics that I talked about. And for about 40 seconds is the peak where you're going to start to feel that sense of what they call soft fascination, and your body goes, ah. And so any place where your favorite chair is, try to think about that whole notion of soft fascination for the residents too. Everything you're going to hear me say is for the residents too. So I would love for every CNA, nurse, whoever is going to be listening to this, to, there was the whole preference study that came out, and we do the social work assessment when people move in. Find out the preference of every resident, whether they're a beach person, a mountain person, a garden, what is their preference, and bring that into their space. Adjust your TV, computer, phone so that the screensaver is a nature scene. There's probably more evidence on this than anything else. It's called fractals. So fractals, seeing nature in patterns. And if you create, much like Jack did, but there are other fractal patterns. And Jack, you might even know about fractal patterns when you're designing sacred geometry or architecture outside. But these are free. So for yourself and for the residents, and maybe you have your own photo of your happy place in nature. But there is plenty of evidence to suggest that if you look at that throughout your day, your body is going to respond to that. And we're on our phones a lot. So for the residents, on their TV or maybe on their tablets, and for yourself, open a window. A couple of reasons why you'd open a window, and Jan, you're going to appreciate this. So opening a window, first, there's the breeze, which there's a notion in biophilia that when you feel the breeze across your face, it's not so much the wind, but that breeze across your face makes you feel like you're outside. And again, there goes all the biometrics just from the breeze from your window. So of course, Florence Nightingale always said, and for the nurses on the call, that that's a good thing from an infection prevention standpoint, which of course it is, because it brings in fresh air. But what she necessarily didn't talk about, and it didn't come out until later with the biophilia hypothesis, is this whole feeling of fresh air across your body makes you feel wonderful. And then of course, you're going to get the nature smells. And I'll talk about this down below, but you're also likely to hear bird song if your window is open and you're in an environment where there are birds, which for most people, even in the city, we're able to hear birds. And then I talked about this right initially. What's your preference? Where do you like to be? And then just do more of it. Where do you like to be? And do more of it for the residents too. Plants of all kinds, potted plants, plants and vases, whatever. I don't spend money on these things either. You don't have to. You can go right out in nature. All these plants here, I just picked them this morning for you from my garden. So we've got daisies. I got a little bit of my hydrangeas. I've got some roses, and just more of that. So really, just you can go out in nature anywhere and pick pretty much any plant. And I always ask the plant first, because all plants are living things. So I always ask if I'm thank you. And I say, thank you for letting me pick the plants. I have every kind of flower essence here so that I have nature inside, literally. So not everybody would like these, but they're just different flower essence. So it's another way to bring nature inside, literally inside. And then water features, fountains, fish bowls, or again, the sound of water from your phone. Residents too. If you're a beach person and you have that wave going on at night, it's almost a natural sedative. And there's a whole chapter in this book about that. This one is Biophilia, Nature and Your Home, just about the sound and the presence of water. Very powerful element to have around you. And then just in your house in general, just look around. Where can you bring in more wood? Maybe bring in more green, whether that's I don't know what just happened there, Joan, but.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, I don't need it, but if anybody was reading along that way, any way you can bring in natural elements. So wood or the color of green, blues as the sky. One of you mentioned hospital systems. And who's really doing this big are dentists. So nowadays, if you go to GYN, birthing rooms, dentists, and your head is looking up, you're probably looking at some nature picture that they have posted on top of anybody seen that yet? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
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 So first, I mean, it became really popular with birthing rooms and birthing centers where they started bringing in more natural elements. And so, in the old days, if you had a baby and you laid on your back, you kind of just looked at the steel and the hospital room, surgical room. Same with the dentist office, but now they have in ultrasounds and all other areas, especially in Cleveland Clinic, Mount Sinai, people who really onto the place. So now look, you won't go, oh, that was nice of them to do that. You'll say, oh, they're trying to bring down my blood pressure, my pulse, and my heart rate. They're trying to make me feel more calm. Your dentist didn't do it because he wants you to look at nature. He wants you to be more calm and relaxed. So there's science there and people are catching on. Smelling nature any way that you can. So back to your window being open. Cypress has the most beneficial component for your biometrics in terms of heart rate, sense of calm. It has the most earthy, terpene kind of smell in it. For whatever reason, our olfactory system, way back in our primal roots, loves that smell. So for the residents, for yourself, any place that has a diffuser or, you could even take a little clip off a cypress tree after you ask it and bring it in and let everyone smell it. It's wonderful. And so we can diffuse that and bring nature inside. You can really diffuse any of the smells, trees, flowers, etc. But cypress is one of the most studied and most beneficial. In fact, if you are inclined to look at any of the forest bathing universities, forest bathing schools in Singapore and parts of Asia, cypress is their #1 prescription in terms of prescribing for people. Now, in Denmark, the UK, many parts of Asia, nature now is written as a prescription to people.
Yeah.
Literally writing a script that says 2 hours. In the UK, it's about 2 hours in nature. In Denmark, it's about 5 hours in nature. In Asia, and you can Google this, or I can give it to you, Joan, because I'm quoting off a lot of the research, and people can ask me later if they want it, the actual articles. But and then in Asia, in parts of Asia and the forest bathing areas, they're literally write out a script for you to go walk in such forest, such forest, such forest. And they're designed for health promoting experiences. Someone mentioned wild preserves in national forests. So why those have such a compelling feeling for the body is they're untouched. So especially, like, I just came back from Alaska, and Denali is a wild forest. It smells different than even my forest, not only because it's in Alaska, but it's untouched, literally untouched. So you're picking up different things, and that's really what the folks in Asia are talking about from the prescription of forest bathing. Big thing. Touch nature using fabrics and wood and textures. If you whatever your furniture or maybe a blanket that you have, images of nature, images of trees, maybe an ocean, or the way that they feel. Grass is another big one. Color, bringing it all in through fabric and texture is another way to bring it inside. And for the residents too. And then the last one, and that's so fantastic, Jan, that you're on, is birdsong. Either real birds, or there are multiple apps that you can download for the residents or for yourself, and just have them playing on a very low key in the dining room or in the residence room, or even in the whole community if it's an option, and just hear bird song, because the bird song in particular has been studied probably more than anything, because we love music, right? We love music is its own medicine. And so bird song in a way is a form of music medicine. And we're geared toward bird song. Like, we would not be here if we didn't have an affinity toward bird song, because birds early on, caveman time, when birds were singing, we knew as cave people and hunter-gatherers that we could move about the forest because the birds were singing. Birds were singing because there was no evidence from high or low that a bear was afoot, or a lion was afoot, or the tiger was afoot. So we knew when birds were singing that life was safe. And I use that word safe because that's the word that's used in the research. Birds singing, I'm safe. Residents hear birds singing, residents think they're safe. Team hears birds singing, I'm safe. Can we all use a little more sense of safety right now? And if the birds stopped singing when we were in nature, hunter-gatherers said, oh, time to get low, time to hide, because the bird stopped, something's afoot, right? So this is not just, oh, the birds are beautiful sound. We're primally geared, folks, for this type of relationship with nature. Nothing is by accident. I've said a lot, so I'm going to pause for a minute. That's my top 10 tips.
Wow.
I love that.
That's great.
And I have to tell you, Tammy, the first one, you got me with the first one when you looked at the favorite chair near a window. A very special story for me is my mother, who the last several years of her life was living with dementia. And she had a condo up in the Chicago area and big, huge picture window. And mom would spend so much time sitting at that picture window and watching the clouds and talking about the different cloud formations as she saw them. And when we moved her to St. Louis, we were very, very fortunate that we found an assisted living apartment for mom that had a picture window that was very similar to what her window had been in her condo. And again, she could sit and watch the clouds. But one of my favorite memories was we had driven up to, my sister passed away while my mom was here living with me, and we had to drive up to Chicago for the service. And driving back, it was me and my mom in the car. And this is going to sound kind of strange and probably not safe, so don't listen to this part of it. But my odometer was flipping over 200,000. So, I was holding my camera so that I could, see the flip of the 200,000 as I was, I know, you didn't hear that part. But the cool thing about it is in the background on that tape, which I still have, I hear my mother talking about the clouds that she is watching as we're driving down the road. And it created such a special memory for me. And I always knew that was her happy place.
Yeah. So there, just again, nothing by accident. Clouds, if I go back to fractal patterns, and we could do another whole show on fractal patterns, but clouds are known to be one of the gazing at clouds, because of the fractal patterns that are within a cloud, bring about all of those calming biometrics, blood pressure, pulse, heart rate that I spoke of. I'll send you the cloud one specifically, because there's a study, and this always brings me to the residents and the team, because it so much of their time is indoors. So much of their time is indoors. And I don't like the analogy of nursing homes and prison, but I want to point out a study that was done in a prison in Oregon that had two groups of people. One group that could look up through a cage because they were only allowed into the courtyard. In the courtyard, no trees, no plants, no nothing, just a courtyard. The only thing they could do was look up at the sky through a caged area because they didn't want people to climb over. And the people in solitary confinement did not have the caged sky. That was the study. And the people who were allowed to look at the sky had various things measured. Of course, every single prisoner that was able to lay on their back and gaze at the sky through the crate had better biometrics than all of the prison. I mean, it's a no-brainer, but to the point, it's a strange way to get there. Clouds and gazing at the sky has a very, very powerful effect on the body. And I only brought those two stories because it's a really, really scary and interesting study that's been now replicated over and over in different parts, environments, and even now in school systems. That Bill Browning, one of the co-authors of This Nature Inside, did a study in a Maryland school district with inner city kids who in math, and took kids who were struggling and put them in a biophilic designed room with the things just like we're talking about here. Biophilic patterns, more natural lighting, wood for desks. I mean, his study is out there, but of course, every part of the study shows calmer kids, better math scores, kids want better attendance in school, on and on and on and on, just from changing the classroom. There's a couple other great architects who are building spaces for children on the spectrum, everyone on the spectrum, not just children, and profound results there. So if you have a child, love children, or grandmother, grandfather, anything to do with children, if you have not read Last Child in the Forest, please do. I want to make sure I'm saying that right.
And Tammy, if you send me these different resources, I will put a link to them on the website.
It's actually, I said forest because I love the forest, but it's actually Last Child in the Woods. If you've not read this book, oh my goodness, you would, I don't know what to say. I start to cry when I think about this book. So I'm not gonna.
There you go.
Crying is not wrong, but one of the things why, I'm gonna tell you, this is the honest truth here, why I don't bring this book up on calls with people in long-term care, because we love to naturally go towards the children. But this call is about older adults, and this call is about the workforce. That's what this call is about. So this is wonderful. And you can apply all these things to the resident in room 202 as well. So everyone peeks and smiles over children, but gosh darn it, we're on the call right now about older adults.
But that's it. I will reinforce, and I went ahead and put this in the chat, Tammy. I put in the chat, there's a couple things in there. One is the 10 tips in a PDF. One is Tammy's website, which I want to be sure everybody has. And the other one there is the link to the events page on the Pioneer Network website. And even as we move on with our podcasts, we will keep all our podcasts stay on their archives. So you'll be able to find this podcast, this conversation, and any resources that Tammy sends to me, I will also put those up on a PDF on that site. So they'll be available to people.
And Tammy, as a new grandma, I appreciate you recommending that book.
Yeah.
And I'll let my daughter know about it as well. Yeah.
Really, really good stuff. Yeah.
And I think, maybe there's some opportunity there, Tammy. We talk about, our love for children. And obviously those of us on this call, our love for elders as well. And those don't have to be mutually exclusive.
And the workforce, my heart is as big, it is as big for the workforce as it is for the resident. It's never been any different. You can ask any of my teams. I just think it's the most beautiful work you can do.
And why can't we enjoy the benefits of nature together? Even and we do, and I mean, I think about it myself. A lot of my hikes are with my grandkids, but why can't we, within the nursing home, within the assisted living, make that something that we focus on? How can the nature that we have around us, or the nature we bring into our community, be combined with that intergenerational piece with the children and with others, so everybody gets the benefit of it?
There's typically massive courtyards that maybe one or two of the residents sit in on a regular basis. It's the same two residents with their little dog that sit out there. Why are we not using the courtyards?
And Tammy, you may know about the white paper that Maggie Calkins did for us on the outdoors for senior living and care communities, which gives them lots of ideas for how to get that outdoors used,
Yes.
Changed, make sure different elements are out there and stuff like that. Just so important.
It's huge. And maybe, I remember when you sent that to me, I just love any of those elements that can be brought in. We talk a lot about pet therapy, but nature's free. If you put them you talk about fractals in the clouds and just gazing at the clouds, that little bit of soft fascination. They're taking blood pressure pills. They're taking sleep pills. If we have people go out in the morning when the sun is out early, often before 10 a.m., and get that sun, so especially for the homes in Florida, right? Get that sun on the frontal lobe, back to the pituitary. Your melatonin and your circadian rhythm is reset naturally I see Jack shaking his head. It's reset naturally by that experience. So drop the Ambien and get out in the morning and let that sun hit the forehead, and automatically resets your circadian rhythm. It's a gift to you from the universe, from God above. It just, I'm not saying, I always balance what I'm saying. My whole business is built on non-farm approaches, natural approaches, but I'm not anti medicine. It takes all things in balance. But this is free. Many of these things are free.
But
And
Tammy, we need you so desperately because the balance isn't there in our long-term care, in the world of long-term care, in the world of how we approach care and services for seniors. We haven't, I say this, we haven't really thought about, the implications of the environments in too many cases where residents live, where they are isolated from the outside, where the only time they get out is to go to a doctor's visit. And that's going from the door to the van, to the van, to the door. And that's as much as they get. And like you, it hurts my heart sometimes when I think about how many residents in long-term care have not really been outside of the building in weeks or months or years. And if there's anything the pandemic taught us on a very personal level, we all saw and felt that how much that hurt to be that secluded and to be stuck inside. And I can't even imagine what that is like for those living in so many of our long-term care communities.
Again, it's another privilege that we have that the residents don't, which is to walk out that door. Your age made you a victim in this case. I mean, anybody over X age, they said, do not go outside. I mean, anyway, I'm not going to go down.
Well, I'll share a happy thought, Tammy. There's a community in Georgia when we look at outdoor spaces, and I thought of this when you talked about the tactile piece of nature as well. In their courtyard, in a beautiful Dementia neighborhood that they have, it's a community called Park Springs in outside of Atlanta, Georgia. They have an area that has a bench, and it is surrounded by sand. So the residents can go out and they can sit on that bench and they can take their shoes off and wiggle their toes in the sand. And I love that when I saw that.
That's delicious. I should have put that in there. I mean, that would probably be its own one pager, which is all the reasons to take your shoes off when you're outside. I mean, go barefoot as much as possible in almost any environment, as much as you can. It's just good for you. It's a connection that, again, back to primal instincts. When the rubber shoe, there's a whole movie called Grounding and the Benefits of Earthing. And when that rubber sole was created in the industrial movement, you saw the rise of chronic disease. We lost the connection to nature. Wow.
And yet, if you had a resident who walked around barefoot in the average nursing home,
oh my God,
I would bet money they're going to get stopped.
Yeah, well, I shared last year during the pandemic in one of my communities, the COVID community. I moved up to the dining room because it was the only community that had French doors to the outside. Moved all the COVID residents to the dining room, opened the French doors, in and out they went. No shoes on, no shoes off, sat in the sunshine out in the courtyard. Wow. And of course, completely biophilic immersion to feel better. Because what are they treating us with? Vitamin D, vitamin C, zinc. All of that comes from the outside. Anyway, I can just go on, and I appreciate being invited into this. So very, very important topic.
Well, I have a question because I'm not in the field. And although I could be, it's a timely topic because I could be heading towards it, in the next few years, but it seems to me like, I've read a lot of the studies that you are talking about, and I actually heard that Mr. Louv talk about Last Child in the Woods. He's really something. It's exciting to think about what you can do, and depressing because it's such little things that it takes to help that we're missing that with kids. And I feel the same way with older adults. And as I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you all who are in it, talk about the things that are happening all over the world, and all the things that you're talking about that we now are beginning to know by volumes of people repeating things like this. And first of all, the first thing that comes to mind, if all it takes is a little science behind this, we would have been over the pandemic a year ago, so that's not going to be the thing that's going to necessarily cinch the deal here. Who do we get to? Who makes the decisions? How do we say, like, I have a friend who's worked in dementia care for years. And she would say, like, for example, here's where it starts out with a great idea and then it runs amok. Like, oh, old people like birds. Oh, okay. So let's spend millions of dollars we'll put these big fancy aviaries in the things that my friend would say would often terrify the residents because they're in a captive environment. The birds they would get kind of wound up and they'd be so loud that it would cause the residents to become agitated and they'd have to take them away from that. So now we're having like two captive environment, people or bunches that were thrown together. What could possibly go wrong? So what are the steps you can take? How do you get those places to those people to say it's, like you could spend $100,000 a year to maintain these aviaries, or you could put more doors in your place that open to the outside and, crack the window once in a while, put that bird song out the door, I mean, it's insane to me, but it's like, I feel like I started to allude to this earlier. I feel like it's because it's nobody's responsibility, particularly. Nobody has the budget, is in charge of the budget for that. And and so it's like everybody, I can't talk to anybody who doesn't agree that this is what, this would be a better thing for humanity, but certainly for people that are captives like this. And yet, how do you move the dime here, like, so that they will, like, we can extrapolate that into like what you just listed here, which, by the way, thank you. I'm going to be blogging about these for some time. How do you, like, they're not hard. They're not even necessarily expensive, or
people will say that it's so intuitive that it's not believable.
Yes.
It is so intuitive, it's not believable. But you said a few things. So I think no one knows more than Kathy and Joan from the Pioneer Network. Like, how do you move culture, right? Because we're talking about a cultural shift in a belief that nature can be your partner on your health plan. That's the new belief. My personal new the reason why I left corporate America is, I have a goal that every long-term care, nursing home, senior living, home care, whatever, every long-term care break room is redesigned for a nature immersion experience, because we know that it increases a workforce creativity. We know that it drops absenteeism. We know that people have better health outcomes. And we know all this for the workforce. So I don't know who I have to talk to. I'm talking to everybody. Somebody is going to get on this wagon, and every break room will be redesigned to feel like more inviting versus a compliance experience, a more comforting experience. And I say that with the other side of my face. 10 years ago, 13 years ago, standing in front of hundreds of people at a Pioneer Network on the stage saying, break rooms should be eliminated from the nursing home, from the green. I said that thinking it was the right thing for the workforce or for the residents or for the home. And in hindsight now, I was on that bandwagon. And
why did you think that?
Because I thought that being with the residents and around the residents and all, I was all like, how can we make it feel more like home was the mission. And in my home, do I have a break room? If I think about it now, hell yeah, I've got a lot of break rooms. I know my little happy places and all throughout my house, right? I have a break room in my house if I want to get away from my family. So I was on stage saying, get rid of the break rooms and make it feel more like home. And of course, when you know better, you do better. That's Maya Angelou saying it over and over. And if you look at the big folks in Silicon Valley, Google, Facebook, Twitter, Tesla, all of them in Tel Aviv, Singapore, every break room is a nature immersion because they know what it does to creativity. You can't go in those break rooms. It's all about nature. Google it. Why do they do that? Absenteeism, better production. I mean, they do it from a different standpoint than we do it. I'm talking health prevention, but they do it for work harder, work faster, work better. That's their mission. They're not shy about it. That's why their nature rooms are there. Their break rooms are harder, faster, better, because they know that that happens too. But here's the experience I had. I'm trying to get some beta sites for recharge rooms where I can go in, take what people already have and redo their break room and start measuring it with a couple of folks. Dr. Reinhardt actually is one of the people that I'm working on that project with to try to study that for people in long-term care. That said, there is a badge of honor right now that I'm hearing from providers and operators and administrators, directors of nursing. And I literally sit up when I say, because this is my experience, is that my people don't take breaks. They are working so hard. I'm so proud of them. They skip their breaks, Tammy. You know, they're doing just awesome. And they never, and inside I'm crying because I know all of the things that are happening and this cycle that is happening that will keep happening with the workforce if we don't break the cycle. Can you be on one more call that talks about workforce shortage with nobody giving you a solution?
Yeah.
We know in one area, one small little area like nature immersion, more creativity, more productivity, less absenteeism, I mean, there's a paper called The Economics of Biophilia. It's all there. And that's old. The paper's old. It was written eons ago out of the, Bill Browning was one of the authors there. We should have just started. Anyway, I'm not going to do the should have. You
pick up.
get my buttons. I'm getting, so yeah, the goal here is obviously to spread the notion of nature immersion in all of your inside environments for the workforce, for the residents, for yourselves. But the ultimate mission here is a recharge room in every long-term aging services area that there is. The other folks are doing it already. Mount Sinai, the Cleveland Clinic, all the big hospitals. Of course, I mentioned all the big places, school systems, on and on and on. We shouldn't be the last again. Nursing homes are always the last. We shouldn't be the last again because we know. And I'm saying it's not $1 million ticket. This is come on in, get an assessment. Let's do a walkabout. What do you have? And let's put it and redesign your break room.
I'll pick. Well, you know, just when I want to say something, somebody has to bark. So I apologize for that.
Well, I think they want to say something too.
No, but see, that's nature sounds. So I'm on target there. Just maybe not the birds you were thinking of. But I want to pick up on what Jan was talking about a little bit, Tammy, and just explore that a little bit more. And I know we're probably going to run out of time, so I'll try and get these thoughts pulled together as quick as I can. But I started doing this. My wife was the one who encouraged me to think in this direction. And so I focused on dementia gardens, and that expanded into other areas as people became more aware. So I've been fortunate in being able to design gardens for physical therapy, hospice gardens, and a range of different settings for people. But like what you're saying, what Jan was saying, and I think everyone on this call is saying the same thing, is, and this is not a question that's easy. I know, Tammy, you've been involved in this, so you know it very well. But how do we get this word out there more? And we're all doing that on this call, and this call there should be thousands of people on this call. And you've been speaking about this for years and so forth and trying to do this, but it's not only trying to get the word out, it's, Maggie Calkin's paper, but it's also little things that it's a door that's lightweight, that's easy to open. You mentioned a chair by a window that doesn't have a drape or a curtain in front of it that someone can't see out of it. These are all really, as you said, intuitive things that once people, it's that aha moment. Once people hear it and see it, then they say, oh, look at that. My wife is a geriatric care manager. And so I don't have the research behind it, but I have so many stories from gardens I've designed or stories she's told me. As a very quick example, one of her clients in a memory care residence, very agitated. In speaking to the family, finally, they found out that the caregivers found out that he was a lifelong birder. They put a bird feeder outside of his window and he immediately calmed down. He would sit and watch the birds. So everything you're saying, but it's these things. How do we build that into the care plan? And so all these things, it's physical. I know I'm shotgunning. I'm all over the place, but that's my frustration, right?
Yeah, it's passion too. I can hear it.
Yeah, but how do we continue to make those improvements, changes, wake people up? And that's nothing you have to answer right now. So
I'm saying I can pick one thing and start doing it. So role model, I'm picking break rooms, one break room at a time, one provider at a time, one workforce smile at a time. Pick one thing. I mean, get it out as much as you can. I think I do want to say, Jack, you said, I don't have any evidence, but I have countless stories. Experience is research. So tell those stories. Experience in my mind, I mean, experiential research, it's a thing. So it counts for you and your wife. So tell those stories. We are up against, to be honest and be fair, what are we up against? Does Big Farm like me talking about nature as a pill? No. Do insurance companies like me talk? No. So when I go to these places and say, oh, I'd like a grant to study, they're like, no, we're actually not granting out for natural, holistic, blah, blah, blah. So it's getting in front of the right people. I believe where it will go, because that's where I see the trend. The people that are interested in this right now, in terms of making it a more evidential experience and biophilic design, are the architects with dementia. There's a lot of traction. If you looked at the, I don't know, I have it in somewhere around here, but the environmental, who are winning the awards right now in the environmental designs are the biophilic designers in the arena of dementia. Now, let me just say, what are they doing? They're putting courtyards in there. They're putting more windows so that people have over atriums and windows on the side. It's not going to mean anything if, just like when the greenhouse said, here's a courtyard and we don't lock our doors. You have to engage the workforce to be able to participate in this. People aren't going to do this without the support of the workforce. That's why it is togetherness that counts. You can build all of it, but without the education and understanding and the agreement to do better, build it. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have a question. So what if I was trying to do an experiment, because so many of the people who call are older, or are family members of older people who call our company about bird feeding. I always say our customer service is more like a therapy line than any like actual customer service. But this, I hear this a lot, a fair amount, that like, here's the thing, if you ever drive by a nursing home, at least I live in the Midwest, so you will never pass one that doesn't have bird feeders out, and almost all of them are empty, because they have to rely on their family or somebody to come and fill them. And, you can't ask the nurses who are killing themselves, could you run down to Walmart and get a 20-pound bag and then come back and then clean out that old one real good? And then, it's just, I get that. So we have made this possibility that it can be mailed, like it delivered right to the thing, right to their house, and they can put it outside the windows. It requires taking a recyclable tray out and putting it away and put a fresh one in. That's it. The maintenance people can do it. Anybody can do it. Here's my question. If I was trying to do this, because I sell bird feeders, but I have an interest in an aging population. That would be me. So, and I have an interest in like I agree with you about children. We can spend all this attention.
Yeah, I think the Pioneer Network has always told you about the leadership. If you don't have a leadership, they don't even, the trash cans don't get changed. Leadership has to buy into the bird feeder. Leadership has to buy in that the bird song has a therapeutic effect for the resident. It always, over and over, we say it rises and falls on leadership, and it's not changed, and it still does.
So question here, if you were trying to do you know any like more progressive it could be a small place or some place where they would be willing to let us sort of study it to see what happens. So like when we bring their eyes out more, and so they're seeing outdoors and they're hearing outdoors and they're seeing, when birds are around, lots of other, animals are around. Is it easier, or if a little small facility like a mom and pop's nursing home and, the middle of nowhere?
What we're saying though, mom or pop or the big fancy one, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It has to do with who is behind the curtain as the leader. Like, what is their belief? Are they going to enforce or not? It's a big word.
Support.
Right.
Are they going to support?
Encourage and support. Yeah.
Matter. We've seen beautiful things happen in mom and pop, and we've seen, beautiful. I mean, it's leadership. There is no other answer. There hasn't really ever been one. Another one of those, so easy,
But so hard.
Yeah.
And Jan, I think the beauty of a forum like this is we at Pioneer Network are so proud of the relationship we have with Tammy. She's a wonderful partner with Pioneer Network. And I am so excited that now we have 2 new partners in you and in Jack. And I hope you feel the same way, because I feel that this has been an opportunity to get to know someone, and it's building those relationships and making connections. So yeah, Jan, can we see if we can figure out how to make some connections? Because I love what you're saying and what you're doing. It's such a beautiful thing. And maybe together we can figure out a path for something like that. Jack, I'm thrilled to hear of the work you're doing. And it doesn't surprise me that having Juliet being the one that was the connection between both of you, that really tells us where, it's, whatever it is, the seven links to Kevin Bacon or whatever it is, that we are connected and have a shared goal. And I hope that this conversation, number one, we know it's going to continue, because I'm putting something in the link here as we kind of close things up in the chat. Tammy's going to be back with us again on Tuesday, November 16th, and she's doing a webinar called Recharge with a Nature Fix. And I put a link to that webinar. That is one of our Share the Vision webinars, and those are at no cost. So we talked about, Jack, you said there ought to be 1,000 people on this conversation right now, and we wholeheartedly agree with you. So let's get those 1,000 people to come to the webinar and continue that conversation.
I'll help promote that. Let me
Okay.
know. We'll stay in touch, and between Juliet and myself, and I'm sure a lot of others will. I got apologies to Tammy and everyone here. It was kind of late notice, but I'm glad it was still, this morning that I heard about this. I'm glad I'm here.
I trust whoever is here is supposed to be here. And I loved hearing from Jan. I loved hearing from you, Jack. And, back to Jan, what can we do? Also connecting it to social determinants of health, health disparities, health equity helps people understand this is not a nice thing to do. This is part of the healthcare system. It works in China. It works in Asia and other parts of Asia. It's happening in Denmark. It happens in the UK. If I have a doctor's order that says, please put Miriam's chair next to the window, you damn straight they're going to follow the doctor's order. So do that here.
There you go. Well, on that note, Tammy, I'm going to officially close out this conversation. That doesn't mean I'm shutting things down, but we'll officially close out the conversation. I thank you so much, and to everyone who participated in it. We hope everybody's with us again on November 16th to learn more, because this is just incredible. So thank you and have a wonderful day.